Hello and thanks for joining us. This is World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon Offem. Here are the top stories. Federal government declares June 12 public holiday to mark Democracy Day. FG orders probe into alleged neglect of accident victims in Abuja hospital. Nigerians cut spending on foreign travels by 30%. Disco raised bills 107% despite poor power. Over 70% of inmates now registered on NIMC database. On the international scene, Asian markets rally ahead of latest China-US trade talks. And in sport, Ronaldo and Portugal overcome Spain on penalties to clinch second Nations League title. Those are the headlines. Details coming up shortly. The federal government has declared Thursday, 12th June 2025 as public holiday to commemorate this year's Democracy Day celebration. The Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunjojo, who made the declaration on behalf of the federal government, congratulated Nigerians on this occasion of 26 years of uninterrupted civil rule. This was contained in a statement signed by the Permanent Secretary of the Interior Ministry, Magdalene Ajani. The statement says, and I quote, "The last 26 years tells the story of our resilience, strength and courage, and a hope renewed than ever." End of quote. Noting that democracy is sustained with open doors for further improvement, the Honorable Minister reiterated the commitment of the renewed hope government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the universal value of democracy that is based on freely expressed will of the people in determining Nigeria's political, economic, social and cultural systems. The federal government has launched an investigation into a viral video showing alleged neglect of accident victims at the emergency unit of the Federal Medical Center FMC Jabi Abuja. The video, which circulated widely on social media, showed victims of a road accident reportedly left unattended by hospital staff members after being brought in by a Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan who recorded the footage claimed he found the victims on the road and transported them to the hospital for urgent care. He alleged that hospital staff refused to provide immediate assistance, with one citing a lack of gloves. However, minutes later, as also seen in the video, some hospital staffers were seen assisting in lifting one of the several injured victims into the emergency unit. Other victims, despite their injuries, were also seen leapwalking into the unit on their own. In response, the hospital's public relations officer, Obadiah Ghana, in a statement confirmed that the hospital has begun a comprehensive investigation into the incident. Preliminary findings, according to the hospital, indicate that the emergency department had an adequate supply of essential medical items, including gloves, resuscitation equipment, and medication. The hospital also stated that there was no shortage of trolleys or wheelchairs and that interactions with on-duty staff and other stakeholders are ongoing. Against the backdrop of the hike in cost of living due to sharp depreciation of the naira and several severe inflationary pressures, Nigerians reduced spending on foreign air travel by 30% to $3.66 billion in 2024. Aviation experts attributed the development majorly in the 244% depreciation of the naira to 1,553 naira 73 kobo per dollar in 2024 from 450 naira 71 kobo per dollar in early 2023, as well as the historic rise in inflation to 34.8% in 2024 from 21.34% the previous year. They also cited the tighter immigration laws in developed countries, as well as the removal of Nigeria from the e-visa and visa on arrival by some countries, which reduced the number of Nigerians who want to japa that flee the country. Additionally, the cost of tickets due to the decision of foreign airliners to price their tickets in dollars following their inability to repatriate their naira. According to findings from the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), data showed that air passenger travel fell for 2 consecutive years in 2023 and 2024. According to the CBN data, spending on foreign air travel fell by 18% year-on-year to $3.09 billion in 2023 from $3.78 billion in 2022. This trend continued in 2024 when foreign air travel fell again by 14% year-on-year. Data increased by 106.68% or 393.26 billion naira year-on-year from the same period in 2024. According to the latest report published by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, the 12 power distribution companies, also known as DISCOs, billed customers a total of 761.91 billion naira between January and March 2025. However, only 559.3 billion naira was collected during the period, translating to a revenue collection deficit, a deficiency of 73.4% and a shortfall of 202.61 billion naira or 26.6%. This performance is slightly improved compared to the same period in 2024 when the DISCOs collected 291.62 billion naira out of 368.65 billion naira bill, of 69.1% and a shortfall of 77.03 billion naira. However, the quantum of revenue lost in 2025 more than doubled year-on-year, and the percentage of revenue lost due to non-payment increased. The performance indicates an improvement in volume from the total revenue collected by all DISCOs in 2024 of quarter 4, which was 0.984 billion naira out of the 658.40 billion naira that was billed to customers. A detailed breakdown of the figures showed wide disparities in the performance of the DISCOs. The Nigerian Correctional Service (NCOS) says the majority of inmates across various custodial centers nationwide have already been successfully enrolled into the National Identity Management Commission's (NIMC's) database. National Identity Management Commission's (NIMC's) database. The NCOS noted that this was achieved through the collaborative effort of the service and the National Identity Management Commission (NIMC). It added that as of 7th June 2025, out of the total of 80,879 inmates population, 59,786 inmates, approximately 74%, have been added to the database of the NIMC. The service made this known in a statement by its public relations officer Umar Abubakar. The banking reports that the National Identity Number (NIN) registration exercise is yet to commence in all custodial centers across the country. Abubakar said the registration of the remaining inmates is actively in progress and mechanisms have been put in place to ensure its seamless completion. He maintained that the claim that the registration has yet to commence in custodial centers is factually incorrect and fails to acknowledge the substantial work already done. He added that the service remains committed to the full integration of inmates into national data systems, including the NIN, as part of broader efforts to promote rehabilitation, reintegration, and the digital inclusion of all persons in custody. The statement reads the attention of the NCOS had been drawn to a recent publication of a section of the media alleging that the National Identity Number registration exercise is yet to commence in all custodial centers across the country. This report is misleading, inaccurate, and does not reflect the current state of affairs within our custodial facilities. End of quote. Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal has insisted he will remain in the People's Democratic Party, where he was elected as the 5th civilian governor of the state. The decision was in response to overtures from former governor and Minister of State for Defense Bello Matawale urging the governor to join the All Progressives Congress. The Special Assistant to the Governor and Media Commissions, Mustafa Kara, said Lawal had since made it clear that he would not abandon the party that gave him the ticket to contest the governorship election and won in 2023. Matawale, in a statement issued in Gusau by the former Commissioner for Information, Ibrahim Dosara, had called on the governor to join the APC. The minister made a call at his residence in his hometown in Maradum while receiving thousands of supporters who paid him a Salah homage. He urged Lawal to join the Progressives for the progress of the state, asking him to come out in the open and join the APC instead of sneaking around. The minister assured Lawal that he did not hold any grudge against him, adding that Lawal was highly welcomed into the comfortable fold of APC. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on the Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We will take a short break. When we return, we head into the news analysis segment with Destiny Takan, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst. Stay with us.
Hello.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Destiny Attack and a legal practitioner and a current affairs analyst. Welcome to the World News at 12 today.
Thank you, Solomon. To be here.
Okay, let's go straight to the first news item where the federal government orders probe into alleged neglect of accident victims in Abuja hospital. Now, we have this trend in Nigeria of a hospital in Nigeria prioritizing profit over savings of life, contrary to the medical contract they signed after leaving medical school.
Okay.
So, what do you think about that?
Well, it is really, really saddening. As a matter of fact, I have watched with so much angst and pain, the video circulating right now that's gone viral about the incident at the Federal Medical Center. To think that of all medical institutions, it is or it was at the Federal Medical Center, where it's expected that the federal government funds, not just funds the services and everything about the center. And then here are accident victims, and two of them, and especially one in a dire strait, whose life was hanging between life and death. And there was no hesitations and flimsy excuses about gloves. Gloves should, pick, not just that they were found on somebody, a good Nigerian had taken them to the hospital to roll them in and save lives, and then the excuses about gloves. No, it's beyond gloves. That is the sad attitude that we have, what we have become as Nigerians, Nigerians, flowing from the lack of, the apathy and the lack of empathy for humanity. I mean, from governance, from the policies of governance and all of that, I would want to think, of course, it's simply because, this one is an emergency case and we're not sure of be responsible for this. This man is just a good man. He's just a good Nigerian who has brought them here. And who's going to pay? It's all about payment. Nigerian who has brought them here. And who's going to pay? It's all about payment. It's all about money. And it's all about money. It's all about what they get, what goes to them. It's all about what they get, what goes to them. Because I also feel strongly. I've read what the public relations manager of the hospital, the Federal Medical Center, tried to say. And I said, no, it goes beyond that. Because these staffers must have been responding or reacting, to a policy, a hidden policy, a directive given to them by the hospital management as to what to do with such cases that appear that there will be no person who is standing directly to want to be responsible for the medical bills.
Now, these raises questions about the ethics hammered into doctors from a medical school, because I know in other parts of the world, there's this ethics that's hammered on the doctors where seen and heard of several situations where doctors even have to defile their hospital management just to treat a patient because it's been hammered into their brain that saving of life is a priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Solomon, absolutely. Just as I said, it's a culture. As a matter of fact, it is a culture out there in the West. We have seen, I have seen as well, so many instances where the lives of patients, are priority. The premium placed on the lives of patients, is so high that, yes, indeed, medical doctors and medical staff would defy directives like the one I just alluded to, and ensure that the life is safe first, and even be prepared to stand up before the medical board or management or whatever and defend their decision. But sadly, it's a culture in the West. And what is also happening here is a culture in our country where even the very government itself places no premium on the life of Nigerians. Look at people who are dying in the Northeast, in the North Central, Benue, Nasarawa, Plateau, hundreds slain, and nothing happens. Not even a minister for defense, not the president, not anybody even showing the kind of sensitivity. Elsewhere, that kind of thing happens, the IG of police, the minister of defense will resign, but not here. So it's something they are new, they're becoming, but it doesn't matter to them. So even that incident, we are the ones making noise as it doesn't bother them, sadly. Very unfortunate.
It is one thing for us to criticize the governments about everything. I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, it starts with us individually. I mean, if you get this kind of lack of empathy from ordinary hospital staff and medical doctors and medical practitioners, then sometimes we don't have any right to criticize government for not doing anything in the country.
Oh, trust me. What I'm saying in essence, if you read the thin line between what I'm saying is that indeed, if it were in a climb where it matters, those responsible that will roll. And once we appear to be making noise now in quotes, is that nothing would happen because those who should have held this ones responsible are worse than them. And that's where government comes in enforcement, regulation. Because absolutely, I'm saying don't be inhuman. It's very sadistic. It's saddening. All right. But of course, I'm saying that nothing will come out of it because those who should enforce it or ensure that heads roll at the FMC are themselves worse. And so nothing would happen. This event would go unpunished because those who should do it are worse.
So the second news item, Nigerians caught spending on foreign travels by 30%. Of course, this got to show the economic situation in the country. I mean, people are struggling to eat free square meal, let alone travel out of the country for whatever reason, either for business or for work or for tourism, as it were.
Okay, yes. It's not unexpected. It's very natural. I read that report as well. And of course, you trace it back to what the trend, the report say from 2020. That's when it became as bad as it is right now. Yeah. Because Nigerians are fighting. Life is almost reduced for most Nigerians, to the basic human needs. So even those who have a strong desire to want to migrate, for better, greener pastures, as it were, the Japa syndrome, Japa idea, are hamstrung because the funds are not there. You'll be amazed how much it's the calling to get all of the entire package, including for you to go abroad to any of those countries, Australia, the UK, US, wherever, and because of the faith, the strength of the naira against foreign currencies, especially the big ones, the US dollar, the euro, the pound sterling, the differential is so much that even though you feel like, that's why you see people undergoing perilous journeys. People dying in the sea, in the waters, trying to cross from North Africa into Europe, because of these costs. So it is the economic hardship in our country that is responsible for it, because uh, rather than, first thing first, you need to be alive, before you can afford whatever funds for you to japa. So that's exactly what's going on, what is responsible.
And we also consider that other countries too are beginning to wary of the mass
Exactly. That's the other
migration.
part.
They're all coming to
Yeah.
Nigeria, and then I mean, no excuse, but it's no surprise when we get like xenophobic attack from say countries like South Africa, because they feel Nigerians are coming in to
Take
share
up opportunities and chances.
exactly and share the
Yeah.
opportunities they have.
They're right in a way. They're right, but it's not. I'm not justifying what they're doing. They're right in their
Exactly.
thinking.
Exactly.
They're thinking that they're taking up their chances. But why is that happening? Because you see, they can attack. Would they attack U.S. citizens the way they attack Nigerian citizens who are? No, they cannot. And then that's why you see, my tilt would always go to premium, the regard. What is the quality of life of a Nigerian to the Nigerian government? What is the quality of life of a U.S. citizen to the U.S. government? The U.S. government would go to war against South Africa or any country if their citizen is maltreated, or any injustice is visited against their citizen. They would fight it. But would you fight it? No, they would not. Because they would not, it gives them the impetus to treat Nigerians the way they would. After all, your government that treats you like you're not humans is the reason you're even running down here. And you don't just come here, you're smarter than us. You come here and then you take opportunities, that we would have had, and so they treat us anyhow. So that's exactly what it is. So governance would always come into all of this. Governance is responsible for the migration in the first instance. Look, Nigeria, the giant of Africa that we were called. Today we expect the sort of migration that is happening now to be what we will be trying to put away or put out other African citizens, African nationals from entering Nigeria. If we had good governance, the problem of our country is very, very bad, irresponsible, unaccountable, and corrupt, and inhuman governance. That's the problem.
So, final news before we go. These schools raise bills 107% despite poor power. We've talked about the power generation in Nigeria over and over again, and how bad it is cannot be overemphasized right now. And it looks like the categorizing of power generation onto band A, band B, and band C haven't really done much other than increase the billing by over 300%.
Well, that's another thing. That's another part. You want to question in the first instance the rationale for even handing over power generation and discourse. What was the rationale? What was the mischief that we sought to correct? Has it been in any way corrected? Before we begin to talk about what revenue and what generation, the sad thing is that we have not gained, we've not seen any justification for handing over all of these to discourse in the first instance. You see, have estimated billing largely across the country. That's one. And of course, you know what estimated billing is. Now, what is the justification for grouping some areas, band this, band that? What is the total generated capacity of electricity in Nigeria? If I'm mistaken, about 5, is it megawatts, they call it, or whatever, all over Nigeria. What do you have in South Africa, South Africa, just here, 20-something as against 5 that we have? So first of all, we need to get serious. It is not about hiking the electricity tariff. It's not about complaining about the fall in revenue. What revenue? What they do is they project revenues like they've done before. And that's why they always had estimated billing, right, that still exists. The next still allows them up to now to do estimated billing. Why? Because the owners, directors of these codes tell you this is your revenue projection and you must produce it. However, and so that gives vent for estimated billing. And now you classify areas ban A to Z or whatever. What's the justification for it? What is the power generation and distribution? How many hours of electricity do Nigerians see on a daily basis, first of all, before we start going to all of that? For me, we need a total overhaul. Let's have, if they are not going to increase the power generation, that customers, Nigerians, are having the service for which they pay. Because whether you classify it by A, B, C, or D, all you're trying to do is to ensure that you get the revenue, your revenue projections. And that's why you're classifying it and putting a high tariff on band A, a much higher one, or rather, okay, well, a little bit less on band B and then on band C, but all is for them to realize their own revenue projection without actually delivering the service that Nigerians are paying for. So that's what the problem is.
Okay, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Destiny Tacken, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM.
A new dawn, a new story from the station that keeps you informed. Breaking news, fresh from the scene.
We have a lot all over the country who have been shouting and saying, no, because we know that that's a very faulty direction that the present government is trying to do.
We tell it as it unfolds.
I live in Italy. Last month, I have a daughter and a wife. Though I work alone, I just arrived home, and in my letter box, I had a letter, and it was from the state government addressing to me that to cushion the effect of the high inflation in the society, I'm entitled to go to the nearest post office to get a credit card. That in that credit card, the exchange rate, if I have to compare with the currency in current Nigeria currency, I have almost about 400,000 naira just for me to manage with my family, because they understand that the situation is kind of, is bad. But it's not that things were really bad for me. That is how government works. That is how government works. I didn't have to go and stay on the line. I didn't even make any call. It just came to my house without me asking for it. And I'm not an Italian citizen. Don't get that wrong. I'm not an Italian citizen. I work here. So if they can identify me, still, not even their citizen. So how do somebody in Nigeria who is a citizen be thrown back of rice as if we live in a refugee camp? Even in refugee camps, it doesn't even happen like that. You understand? It's a shame. We could be laughing and we could be talking. The crisis in Nigeria is more than normal. It is so obvious that even a blind man can say, I'm tired, I'm fed up with the system. We should tread caution now, because we're already on the edge. And it's not that when something happens, then the Westerners will now come and say, no, we don't support anything. We don't do this. We don't. But they have been saying that the people have been complaining, and nobody is coming to our aid, because they are happy that our government is giving us one cup of rice, because it will show to them that we are poor, and they will continue to give us aid, and the leaders are happy. They are cashing out.
Still on the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Two international news now. Talks a rallied mandate on hopes that a fresh round of China-US trade talks later in the day would ease tensions between the economic superpowers, while investors were also cheered by forecast topping US jobs data. The gains extended a run-up across global markets in recent weeks as fears about Donald Trump's tariff blitz subsided and countries made deals with Washington. All eyes are on London, where top officials from China and the United States are due to meet for more negotiations aimed at preserving a fragile truce agreed last month that slashed eye-watering tit-for-tat levies. The talks comes days after Donald Trump and Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping held their first publicly announced telephone talks since the US president returned to the White House. They were helped by news that Beijing had on Saturday approved some applications for rare earth export, while plane giant Boeing will start sending commercial jets to China for the first time since April. Optimism that the two sides will make a breakthrough boosted Asian markets, with Hong Kong up more than 1%, while Tokyo, Shanghai, Seoul, Singapore, Taipei and Manila also advanced. The gains followed a strong lead by Wall Street, where all three main indexes closed more than 1% higher after figures showing the world's largest economies created a forecast beating 139,000 job last month. Russia fired a record 479 drones at Ukraine in an overnight aerial barrage, Kyiv's Air Force said on Monday, the latest massive attack on Moscow as Moscow rejects calls for a ceasefire. The attack caused damage in several Ukrainian regions, though there were no reports of people killed or mass casualties. Army air strikes were recorded in 10 spots, the Ukrainian Air Force said. The mayor of the western city of Rivne, Alexander Chevyak, called it the largest attack on the region since the start of the war. Russia has escalated its attacks across Ukraine in recent weeks, which Kyiv says demonstrates that Moscow has no intention of halting its 3-year-long invasion and is not serious about peace talks. The barrages have raised concerns about the capacity of Ukraine's stretched air defense systems, but the Air Force said that it shot down and intercepted 460 of the drones as well as 19 out of the 20 missiles fired by Russia overnight. Ukraine also said it has launched its own overnight strike on an electronics factory that makes part of Russia drones, with local Russian officials saying the facility had to temporarily suspend production after the attack. Then on to sport, Portugal beat long-time rival Spain 5-3 on penalties to clinch their second UEFA Nations League title. Portugal twice went behind in regulation time, but twice fought back to level the scores. Cristiano Ronaldo scored his second equalizer before being subbed off with cramp in extra time. This was also Portugal's manager Roberto Martinez's first international trophy. The brilliant Nuno Mendes leveled things up 5 minutes later. Mikel Oyarzabal, Spain's goal scorer in the Euro 2024 final and 2023 Nations League final, put La Roja back in front just before the break. Cristiano Ronaldo, quiet as he has been before scoring the winner against Germany in the semis, equalized with 6-1 minutes gone. Adjusting quickly after Mendes' cross was deflected into the air, muscling past Marco Correa and volleying the dropping ball home. Ronaldo was subbed off before full time with cramp. Even though Portugal had the better of extra time, the match went into penalties. Both sides converted their first free spot kicks. Mendes buried Portugal's fourth before Morata stepped up and shot straight at Diogo Costa. Neves nervously converted the front of the red and green of the Portugal fans. The victory was just Portugal's second competitive win over a barren rival Spain in their long history. Portugal became the first two-time winner of the Nations League. Launched in 2018, it was Portugal's third major title, along with Euro 2016. And just before we go, let's take a look at our top stories again. FG declares June 12 public holiday to mark Democracy Day. FG orders probe into alleged neglect of accident victims in Abuja hospital. Nigeria cuts spending on foreign trips by 30%. Disco raised bills 107% despite poor power. And over 70% of inmates now registered on NIMC database. On the international scene, Asian markets rally ahead of latest China-US trade talks. And in sports, Ronaldo and Portugal overcome Spain on penalties to clinch second Nations League titles. And that's the World News at 12. I'm Solomon of M. Do follow our social media handles at VOP103FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP103FM. Good afternoon and thanks for listening.